Who's to blame for Romeo and Juliet's deaths? The tragic ending of Romeo and Juliet is one of the most moving scenes in English literature. We've come to care about and identify with the young lovers. It clearly didn't have to happen. So the question arises, whose fault is it that it did? Where does the blame mainly lay? The way I see it, there are three strong answers to this question. 1. Romeo and Juliet themselves. 2. Verona society. 3. Fate, or destiny. First, Romeo and Juliet themselves. No one made Romeo kill Tybalt. No one made Juliet take the sleeping potion. No one made Romeo buy and drink the poison. No one made Juliet kill herself after finding Romeo dead. These were choices they made. Sure, circumstances pushed them in that direction, but aren't we ultimately responsible for the choices we make? The idea of free will is the idea that you can do whatever you choose to do, regardless of what circumstances are pushing you to do. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said that people are whatever they make of themselves. If you're surrounded by evil, as he was during World War II during the German occupation, he said that you may not personally be able to defeat evil, but you can, as an individual, refuse to cooperate with it. Dr. Martin Luther King believed this as well. He said that individual protesters couldn't defeat racism and segregation straight out, but they could refuse to cooperate, which made it harder for racists to continue their immoral policies, and it made them face the things that they were doing. If black people weren't allowed to ride at the front of the bus or weren't allowed to eat at certain lunch counters, they didn't have to follow those rules. They could break them because they were morally wrong. They would face terrible consequences, but they had not just gone along with the immoral rules of their society. Just going along with an immoral system is supporting that system. They exercised their free will and took the moral high road and are now considered heroes of the civil rights movement. So Romeo and Juliet were in a society that was trying to force them apart, but they could have just made different choices and remained together. They could have openly defied their parents, fled to Mantua, and married there. Romeo could have been less rash and not killed Tybalt, or not killed himself. Juliet could have accepted her father's punishment and refused to marry Paris. He might have forgiven her. After all, he said at the ball that he had a good opinion of young Romeo. And she could have been less eager to kill herself in Act 4, Scene 1. They made their choices. That's the free will argument. Some things, of course, are just random mathematical chance. If your friend is killed by falling space debris, that isn't your friend's fault. But some things are our fault, aren't they? One thing that adults learn is that what we say and do of our own free will has consequences, and we have to accept responsibility for those things and not blame forces outside of ourselves. That's part of being a responsible adult. Second, as I just said, their society was trying to force them apart. If their families hadn't hated each other, Romeo and Juliet could have been together. They would have met at the ball, danced, fallen in love, happy ending. If there hadn't been a feud, Tybalt wouldn't have killed Mercutio, which is why Romeo killed Tybalt, Juliet's cousin. If Juliet's parents hadn't tried to force Juliet to marry Paris, which they supposedly did because of Tybalt's death, she would have had time to run away with Romeo. They were two innocent people surrounded by a hateful society and ultimately became its sacrificial lambs. In life, innocent people get hurt. You've seen this. For example, a child killed in a drive-by shooting didn't make a bad choice. That child was killed by the hatred and violence that surrounded them. And we as a society did not do enough to reduce that hatred and violence and create a community where that child would have been safe. So we as a society are to blame for that child's death, aren't we? The prince, as the leader of his society, takes responsibility and says it's his fault for winking at their discords, meaning turning a blind eye and allowing the hatred to fester, not doing enough to stop it, allowing the community to become toxic and eventually end the lives of two innocent young people. That's the society argument. The third argument is that it was fate, a supernatural power that determines what happens to us. If you're religious, you probably believe that your life is in the hands of a deity, your God. You might believe in predestination, which is the idea that your life story is already written and that the feeling that you have free will is an illusion, that invisible forces are actually guiding your actions. If you've ever said, "it was meant to be," you're talking about fate, a higher power that supersedes your own. I have to tell you that regarding the fate and free will question, people often conveniently believe in a combination of the two. They believe whichever makes them feel good at the time. When something good happens, they say it was free will. That happened because of good choices I made. When something bad happens, it was fate. It was meant to be. You know what? That's kind of a cop-out, and you should make an effort to avoid that kind of lazy, inconsistent thinking. Who is driving this vehicle? Pick a side. Shakespeare built the fate argument into the play. Characters repeatedly talk about fate and the stars. There are incredible coincidences. Friar Lawrence's message never reaches Romeo. Romeo dies moments before Juliet awakens. The friar talks about how his feet kept stumbling on graves, without which he would have reached Juliet in time. And in the very beginning, in the prologue, we are told that they are star-crossed lovers, which means their destinies were meant to cross, and that their deaths were predestined in order to end their parents' feud. Romeo and Juliet is a work of art. It isn't real life. But art reveals things to us about real life. Just because Shakespeare baked the idea of fate into every act of the play, that doesn't mean you have to agree with him. So, what do you think? Who or what is most responsible for the tragic ending of these two characters? And in real life, what causes terrible things to happen to innocent people? Is it bad choices by individual people? Is it a broken society? Or is it just how life is? This leads to the question, who or what is in control of your life? Is it you, your free will? Or are you pushed into things, fairly or unfairly, by the way your society is made and organized? Or are you helpless at the hands of a greater power than yourself? Fate, destiny, God. This is the most important question, the question that the play invites you to consider. Who or what is in control of your life? Something to think about, isn't it? Romeo and Juliet is a really fun play, but it's also a deeply meaningful exploration of our place in the universe. It doesn't get much bigger than that. I have several other videos about Romeo and Juliet. You might like them. All right, take care.